Supersport class. Definitely one of the favourites with the competitors, and this is a tough class to work your way anywhere, possibly up into the top 10. Paul Young, the local, will come from pole position. Beside him, Dean Thomas, Greg Moss from 3, and Graeme Morris, the reigning 600 Supersport champion, out of grid position 4.
Paul Young, the 1994 Australian 250 production champ, he's on pole position. He stepped up to this class at the end of last year as they're in the starters' hands, ready to go.
Let's see who grabs the start. Dean Thomas has gotten away nicely on bike 3, and his teammate bike 1's not had it all his own way, back in about 5th, 6th spot. So it is pretty tough out there as they settle themselves in. That is Malcolm Campbell right in behind there on bike 30, and 2 times Australian Superbike champion, now enjoying his racing in the 600 Supersport class. I saw Troy Bayliss up there as well, so he was looking strong. This is Paul Young, and boy, what a charger. He is under brakes. He will get to shine here at Mallala, there's no doubt about that.
The bike's tucked in behind there. Bike 32, the Kawasaki ZX6R of Troy Bayliss, and bike number 3, the Maxima Honda CBR 600 of Dean Thomas. Bayliss and Thomas currently running 1st and 2nd in the championship point score. Paul Young, the pole sitter at this meeting, the first time in 600 class racing this year. He won the 250 Proddy Championship last year. It seems to be a race between these 3. Graeme Morris a little bit behind them at the moment. They seem to be making a break. Paul Young, very smooth on the Kawasaki. He said the quickest way around this circuit, you've got to keep it smooth, you've got to go for consistent lap times, but he feels he's at a disadvantage. He said the Kawasaki gearbox has a bigger spacing between 2nd and 3rd gear. The Honda is better suited to Mallala, so Paul Young's going to have to make up for it with some very talented riding.
Well, spirited riding seems to be his forte, and under brakes he's just so strong. Troy Bayliss there, bike 32, and he has been putting in some very strong rides as well. This is a young man's sport, but don't tell Graeme Morris or Malcolm Campbell that. Both of these guys are very, very experienced, have been running a long time. Look at this battle going on here as Thomas tries up the inside here on Bayliss. Can he do it? Yes, gets up the inside. Great piece of tactical riding there. And again, the 600 Supersports most of the time can make it through the big sweeper on the far side, flat out in top gear. And that really does take some setup and commitment from the riders. And you can see here, Paul Young has really broken the field. Thomas back in 2nd place, back to Bayliss then in 3rd. And in 600 Supersport racing so early in a race, this is a pretty decent lead.
It's not only a race for honours in this particular event, it's a race for the championship. Thomas and Bayliss, as I said earlier, running 1st and 2nd. Bayliss leading at the moment. He needs to keep Thomas in sight. He is riding under a little bit of an injury cloud. He cut a plaster cast off his wrist only 2 days before the meeting so that he could go out and get some points. He's been having acupuncture on that wrist. He says it's strong enough, but he's looking for points rather than the race win. If he can stay where he is and keep Dean Thomas in sight, he'll maintain the lead in the championship. But we've got Paul Young on a Kawasaki, 2nd place Thomas on the Honda, then Bayliss on the Kawasaki, then it looks like Graeme Morris coming into picture on another of the Hondas. Very close racing. All these bikes based on $11,500 production machines with limited modifications.
Yes, there is very few things that can actually be done to the motorcycle, but similar to the 250 production. Oh, there goes Morris up the inside of Bayliss. So Graeme Morris moves himself another spot forward. The modifications fairly limited. Morris there, power sliding his way. Gee, I tell you what, that looked pretty strong from where we could see it. I bet you it looked a lot bigger from where he was watching it. And the modifications really are limited to just setting the motorcycle up. Tyre selection does come into play. The Dunlop seeming to be the dominant brand, but Dunlop themselves have had some real problems after the Kobe disaster. That was where all the race tyres for the Asia area was produced, especially for Australia, not only in bike racing but car racing as well. A lot of the equipment was taken overseas, and it has not been exactly copied, the technology and the tyre compound. So a lot of the riders trying to look for older tyres and revert back to something that they were comfortable with. Teammates now battle out the 600 Supersport race here at Mallala.
More than just a battle in the race too, Greg. Dean Thomas in line for one of the Superbike rides in Australia next year, as is Paul Young leading this race, and Troy Bayliss tucked in behind. Poor old Graeme Morris, he's an old man of the class. He's in his early 30s, so he's not seen as a threat to these young chargers. But Graeme Morris, the lap record holder in the 600 class at this circuit last year, out to close the gap to Paul Young. He seems to be the rider on the charge. He comes up on Thomas, up the inside, hard under brakes. That is a big move. Left it really late, tucks in, manages to hold Thomas out, and he's now off after Paul Young. Not long to go. Whether he can close the gap will depend a lot on how he's looked after his tyres early in the race, but Morris probably one of the smoothest riders in the class.
Yeah, it's probably easier on his equipment than virtually anybody else out there, and that comes from experience. He's been riding this class for a long time, and Benno, his mechanic, has put a lot of effort into making the bike rideable. Well, that's your leader, Paul Young, on his final lap, and gee, it's been a pretty good weekend for him so far. He'd be pretty happy with the way it's all come together. But the 600 Supersport class is an international class. You get to put your best foot forward on equipment that you could ride anywhere in the US, up into Europe as well. Here we have the replay. Now have a look at the commitment here from Graeme Morris. Speedways the machine in, the back steps out, and Dean Thomas did not have a corner to turn into, simply forced back into third place. The man who has had it right from the start has been this guy on screen, Paul Young, doing a tremendous job, keeping it smooth, keeping it fast, and not making errors under pressure. The local, so he's pretty keen to put his best foot forward. He's got a lot of friends here, and that's exactly what he's done. He's taken the win. A great run there from him. He's super pleased with that. Here comes Graeme Morris. That's a hard-fought second place. He certainly has earned the points from that one. And his teammate, Dean Thomas, grabbing third place. That's race 2, round 5 of the 600 Supersport Championship, the Australian Championship. Let's check out the point score and just see how it's panning out with only a couple of races to go. Thomas on 159 ahead of Bayliss, Paul Young, Damon Buckmaster, Graeme Morris and Malcolm